May God open our eyes to see, our ears to hear, and our hearts to love. Amen. 2 weeks into the new year, 1 week back at work for me, and already I'm feeling guilty that there are things on my to-do list that should have been done last week and haven't been done. Some of them are left over from last year and some are new ones from last week. Feelings of guilt bring to mind a traditional Anglican prayer of confession that I prayed weekly at communion during my years at an Anglican girls' high school. Most merciful God, we confess that we have sinned against you in thought, word and deed, by what we have done and by what we have left undone. Especially for me at this stage in my life, by what we have left undone. I tend not to include prayers of confession in liturgy each week, but this week felt it comfortable to do that. I don't include them each week because I think that repentance has been over-personalised and over-emphasised in Christian liturgy, and that it can become a rote practice that does not lead to transformed lives or to a transformed world. The guilt that confession draws attention to can sometimes limit life rather than reorienting and transforming life. This morning I thought about guilt in the context of the call to discipleship that is the focus of the reading that we heard from John's Gospel and the much older story that we heard from 1 Samuel. In our flawed humanity, in our lives with things undone that should have been done, and things done that should not have been done, and things left undone that should have been done, how can we follow Jesus? Could we perhaps hear the discipleship call, not as individuals who have sinned, not with a focus totally on Jesus as a perfect human and ourselves as imperfect individuals, but could we hear it in terms of the revealing of the divine in each one of us? This season of the Church's year is called Epiphany. The usual theological definition of Epiphany, which I mentioned last Sunday, is showing forth. It is the time of year when we focus on the revelation of Jesus. The child in the manger, whose birth is full of mystery and wonder, is now revealed. The meaning of his birth can be understood in the context of his adult ministry. But there are other possible definitions of the word epiphany that are less conventionally theological. When it's used in everyday English, epiphany refers to an immediate and meaningful understanding of something, an understanding that is surprising, sudden, and profound. We tend to expect that church epiphany is about the revelation of Jesus, about finding Jesus, seeing Jesus in various epiphany moments. It's not usually about being found ourselves. But John's Gospel invites us to imagine that it can be about both, finding Jesus and finding ourselves. That is, finding Jesus in those revelatory moments, those unexpected moments, is also when you find yourself, when you find who you are and who you are called to be. These are moments when you realise your identity as a follower, a disciple, part of the beloved community, and get a glimpse of something that you had not seen before, something about your own faith journey, your own discipleship, your own concept of what it is to be a disciple. The commentator Caroline Lewis points out that the Gospel reading from John helps us maintain a connection between Christmas and Epiphany, between incarnation and revelation. If we don't hold on to the manger message of incarnation, of the divine embodied in human life and in human relationships, Jesus' humanity runs the risk of fading into the background in favour of his divinity. What is revealed in Epiphany is what it means that God became human, what it means to say that God entered our world, no longer satisfied just to be with us, but to be one of us. If we understand Epiphany and the call to discipleship as unfolding the meaning of incarnation, we might change too. Our humanity might change. Suddenly we can see that we are no longer the same because we have seen God in who we are. If we think about it like that, our perception of ourselves changes. Peter and Andrew and Philip and the sceptical Nathanael and the mostly unnamed women who were also friends of Jesus heard the call to follow in ways that changed their lives. They found Jesus, and they allowed themselves to be found by Jesus and by the divine presence that had become one of us. Sometimes, maybe a lot of the time, we don't want to be found. Being found is not always a comfortable thing, nor, if we are honest, our epiphanies. So what about you? Do you not want to be found? Or what about Jesus? Do you not want to find out? Maybe this Epiphany season for us might take on some kind of mirror effect. That is, when we hear these texts in the next few weeks, when we look for Jesus, when we experience the revelatory moments of Jesus, we might simultaneously see something about ourselves. Epiphany cannot be one-sided. It cannot be us looking at Jesus and thinking, wow, what an amazing human. We then have to ask, so what? So what for the implications of who we are as people answering the call, follow me? In this season, we expect to discover many things about Jesus, but in the process, let us also anticipate learning something about ourselves. To be epiphany-shaped people means being changed by what we witness. Sometimes the change is monumental, sometimes it's incremental. Either way, something will happen. Some understanding that is meaningful, surprising, sudden, and profound. When it is accompanied by a willingness to be found, finding yourself doesn't have to be a new age, individualistic kind of thing. Being found by the divine is scary because of the demands that it places on our lives. But it can also give us a profound sense of peace as we experience the call to follow with a deep awareness that we are not alone. I believe that Epiphany reveals to us that our lives matter, that each day of our lives matters, no matter what has been done or what has been left undone. As I reflected on Epiphany and New Year during the week, the title song of Rachel Collis's latest album, Remains of the Day, came to my mind. Last year, during her reflection in a service here at Pitt Street, Rachel spoke about this song, which was written by her husband Steve when he was quite young. He wrote it after seeing the movie based on the novel Remains of the Day. The themes of fragility and the brevity of life and the importance of living each day while it lasts shaped the song. Rachel pointed out that there are many things that can stop us being the people that we want to be. Things that prevent us from being able to give, fear and insecurity and past hurt. She noted particularly that when there are large chunks of a life that have been lost to hard times, it can be difficult to remain positive about yourself and what you can give. In a new year, in response to the call to discipleship, the song which we will listen to soon reminds us that what matters is what remains. The chorus of the song says, "The remains of the day are calling me to be what I can. The remains of the day, recalling all that leads to I am. The remains of the day, I embrace thee." I am not sure that Steve intended the line, "recalling all that leads to I am," to have the double meaning that I saw in it this week. I am in the sense of myself, and I am in the sense of the ancient Hebrew naming of God. I am who I am, I will become who I will become. What leads to my personal I am also leads me to the divine I am. God has chosen to be found, to be known in the most intimate way possible. If God truly became human, then God, the divine presence, experiences the same vulnerabilities that we do. When God chooses to reveal God's self in Jesus, we can trust that God knows the same fears and realities that we live with. Fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, of questioning, of being exposed, of being fully known. In the times that I am quick to judge myself and others, I hope that in this season of Epiphany, I will recall the heart of Jesus' teaching about discipleship. Be compassionate as God is compassionate. This is a defining mark of being a follower of Jesus. Discipleship leads us to companionship with God, who is in us and around us. It is not primarily about what we believe. It is not primarily about being good. It is not primarily about getting done the things that need to be done. It is about relationship with the God to whom Jesus points, the God Jesus embodies. Believing in Jesus is not about believing things about Jesus. Marcus Borg has pointed out that the root of the word believe means to give one's heart to. Believing in Jesus does not mean believing the doctrines about him, but rather it means giving one's heart at the deepest level to the God who is shown to us in Jesus and his people. And God believes in us. And God gives God's heart to us and trusts us to be God's people in this place, in this year, in the remains of the day. Amen.
bring